Let me read to you a passage from the first chapter of St. Mark's Gospel, verses 7 to 11. It's the Gospel for January the 6th before the Feast of the Epiphany. St. Mark writes, "This was John's message. After me will come one more powerful than I, the thongs of whose sandals I am not worthy to stoop down and untie. I baptize you with water, but he will baptize you with the Holy Spirit." At that time, Jesus came from Nazareth in Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. As Jesus was coming up out of the water, he saw heaven being torn open, and the Spirit descending on him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "You are my Son, whom I love. With you I am well pleased." That's from Mark chapter 1, verses 7 to 11. What does this suggest to us? Well, of course, it speaks of the Trinity, the triune God. You know, the children of Israel had long been familiar with, and I quote, the Spirit of the Lord. The book of Genesis, perhaps compiled during the 5th and 6th centuries BC, with its component traditions and texts going back much further, opens with mention of the presence of the Spirit or breath of God present at the creation of the world. In the beginning there was God, and his Spirit moved over the waste, the void, the darkness, the deep. Then God spoke. So there was God, there was his Spirit, and there was his Word. The Spirit of God is said to fall upon a number of persons at a certain point when Moses was leading the people in the wilderness. The Spirit came upon David, upon the prophets, and Joel prophesied that God would pour out his Spirit on all flesh. In his first post-Pentecostal sermon, Peter refers to Joel's prophecy, Acts chapter 2, verses 14 to 21. But what was the Spirit of God as referred to in the Old Testament? Well, the meaning of it ebbs and flows, but in general, it was the divine action and the divine presence. In the Old Testament, it was never, of course, conceived as a distinct person, and there would have been no warrant for doing so. Nevertheless, the Spirit of God is often referred to as if the action of God has something of a life of its own, and the Christian will see in such references harbingers of the amazing revelation to come. And thus we are led to the threshold of the ministry of Jesus Christ, when St. John the Baptist refers to the Spirit of God as a messianic gift. More exactly, he speaks of the Holy Spirit, which is the expression used in the Gospels for the third divine person. And this quickly became the standard title of the third divine person, obviously stemming directly from Christ's own usage, with all its hallowed roots in the Old Testament. "I baptize with water," John says, "but he will baptize with the Holy Spirit." Any Christian reader would have interpreted this as a major prophecy of what Jesus Christ would do. After his resurrection from the dead, Christ told his disciples to wait in Jerusalem for the promise of the Father which you have heard from me. John baptized with water, but you will be baptized with the Holy Spirit not many days hence. Acts chapter 1, verse 45. At the baptism of Jesus Christ, the Spirit comes down upon Christ, as he had with David and with several prophets, but in the case of Jesus Christ, he comes in visible form. Now, while in the Old Testament, the effects of the coming of the Spirit of God were often visible in the new powers of, say, governance or prophecy being exercised by the one receiving the Spirit of God, his visible descent is special to the New Testament. It is a factor of the new revelation that the Spirit of God is a person. When Samuel anointed David, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, but nothing was seen descending. When Jesus Christ is baptized, the Spirit of God is seen to be descending on him in visible form. Something distinct and visible comes down from the parted heavens, and it is in the form of a dove. This is not to say that this visible appearance of the Holy Spirit in some symbolic form is typical of his coming to persons in the age of the Messiah. Indeed, it is rare, but when it happens, it reinforces the revelation that the gift is a divine person. At Pentecost, the Holy Spirit comes in the form of tongues of fire, and he, the Holy Spirit, takes charge. Thereafter, in the Acts of the Apostles, the Holy Spirit actively directs minds and hearts, as would a commander. All this is to say that a most notable feature of the baptism of Jesus Christ is the revelation of the person of the Holy Spirit. He is seen in visible form, coming down from heaven, and is identified as the Holy Spirit. But of course, this is not all. God declares himself to be the Father of Jesus Christ, and Jesus Christ to be his beloved Son. Though its import may not have been fully appreciated at the time, it was a public revelation of the triune Godhead, the one and only God in three divine persons. This is not to say that a non-believer or a positive non-Trinitarian, without the benefit of the light coming from the doctrinal teaching of the Church, would be able to see the Trinitarian significance of this event. I'm not at all sure that a mere reading of the Gospels would convey a clear impression of the doctrine of the Holy Trinity. The Gospels must be read within the Church's tradition, and with the Church's mind, and with the Church's teaching in mind. With that, so much will be seen as taught, assumed, and suggested by the inspired writings. Our Gospel today, Mark chapter 1, verses 7 to 11, is a magnificent event. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are revealed, and Jesus Christ is launched on his messianic mission. He comes from the Father by and in the power of the Holy Spirit, and his mission is to baptize in the Holy Spirit, drawing men into union with him, and therefore into the life of the Holy Trinity. The Christian faith is essentially Trinitarian, and the life of the Christian is essentially Trinitarian. I have seen encounters between Christians and Muslims in which Christians have downplayed the divinity of Jesus Christ and the mystery of the Trinity. This is a great pity, for the vocation of the Christian is to bear respectful witness to it before the world.